believe me, I've had those where I'm like, oh, this is what I want. And sometimes I would tie it to just a number. I want 30 people to come to the event. Mm-hmm. And then when 25 get there, I'm like, that was close, but I didn't make it, right?
So you're a perfectionist.
And you
You're
know,
only 5 short. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Framework Podcast. I'm your host, Trujillo Limón, and today I'm really excited to be joined by my friend, Vanessa Martinez. Vanessa, thanks so much for coming on Framework to talk to me.
Of course. It's always fun talking to you.
Absolutely. So, Vanessa, you have a lot of titles. You know, you're CEO and co-founder of Empowered Network, co-founder of SER Latino Advisor Summit, and we met almost a year ago this month, now in September. Talk to us about, like, you know, what you were doing at the Excel meeting, how we met, stuff like that, because that was such a fun story.
So that was an exciting story for me. It was nice to see another Latina in a leadership role, and that was exciting. So going to the conference, I like to do a few things with intentionality, and that was one of them. And I wanted to make sure I was able to get introduced to you, and we just hit it off. And I loved that. I loved our conversation then. I loved our growth and our path to kind of what we have in the future for us.
Oh, yeah, I know. It was a magical moment. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So it was such a fun time. And so if you haven't registered for Excel, these magic moments happen. You still have a couple of days. Go for it and get to excelconference.com and register. But we'll get back to the point. So we always like to kick off these shows talking about money memories. What was your first money memory that you can think of?
So if I think too far back, you go kind of the whole lemonade stand story. But I think more than just making the dollars, my first true money memory was an argument with my parents at the age of 14 because I wanted to get a job. Yeah. And at 14, you need your parents to sign that permission slip to be able to start. And my mom did not want me to work. She was like, we provide you with everything you can absolutely need at home. Why are you going to work? Yeah. And my answer is just because I want to make my own money. That was just it, right? Even if, of course, it's going to be a small amount. At 14, it's a part-time job. But I wanted to do that. And I was fortunate that my dad stepped in. They had a little bit of an argument, but he signed my slip. But then, of course, my first job was to clean chandeliers. And I'm talking about those 1,000-piece chandeliers. And you had to do crystal by crystal, right? So like they drop it down and then you're cleaning.
How intricate. It's hard work.
So much work. And then, of course, what happens? Your wonderful friend Vanessa gets sick. Oh, no. So I get a throat infection because of all the dust.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, see, I told you, you're not going back.
Don't you hate that? When they get their, like, I told you so moment.
But of course, stubborn Vanessa said, yes, I am. Not tomorrow, but the next day. But it's a part-time job, so I don't work tomorrow. But I think that is what's created me into what I am today, right? Yeah. It's just kind of that fighter sense in me that we do have tough days and we'll always have those tough days. But you just have to kind of reset. Too many times everyone's like, just keep it going, keep it going. And I get that. But I do think taking a reset for a couple, it depends on your situation, a couple minutes, a couple days, whatever it is, but then getting back on that horse and chugging along.
That's so important. I saw like a meme the other day or a tweet about when our computers are acting up, we reset them, right? We turn them off and turn them back, give them some time and turn them back on. But then our brains, like we are constantly going and we're faltering at some things and we don't give ourselves that reset that, just, so that's such an important point. I love that. So if you're listening, take it and you're having a hard day, take a break, reset, all of that good stuff. But those first jobs, man, my mom was the same way. She's like, you don't need to work. I think for her, it was a sense of like control. Like if you're making money and you're not asking me for money, like then that wasn't a good thing. So mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but that's what I thought. But I wanted to be a waitress and I was 16, so I was able to do it, but my friend had to get her parents' permission too, and she was in the back, peeling potatoes and stuff. But that was such a fun experience, like that first independent, like making your first paycheck, and I love that. Yeah, that's such a valuable experience.
I think reliving those stories, so it was great to have you ask that, but thinking about those pieces are what make you stronger. And I think we all need to do more of that. Let's talk about those success and failures that we go through, because learning from those experiences are what propel us forward.
Yeah. Jamie and I were just talking this. We went for a run on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We run together, and we were talking about SED and talking about, the talk that he's going to give and all that. And he was talking about the learning from failure aspect. He's like, you learn more from failing than you do from success. And that is so true. The things you work for, the things you struggle for, the things that stick, you know. But speaking of that, I guess the things you work for, what was your first meaningful or your first big meaningful purchase that you remember making?
So that one is a little tough, because as I was thinking about it, like big purchase uh, for myself, I would say it would be my first home.
Yeah.
But when I think about my first purchase, it was a car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not by my own means, it was my parents. And then, of course, I know you listening are going to be like, oh, you're such a spoiled brat. Well, you are correct.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Me too.
So I see that. I see that. I appreciate it. I acknowledge it. But now that I think back more, was that the right financial decision for me, right? Now being in the financial space, could I have done that differently? Should I have financed it differently, right? My parents had saved up money, and because I was going abroad for college, they were like, okay, well then you could do this because your college is covered.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, it totally makes sense. It does
Yeah.
not now make sense, right? Because I could have done a down payment, invested the rest of the money, so many other options, right?
Yeah.
So I think that big purchase just makes me reflect on other people that are in the same situation, but because you don't know better, sometimes you make decisions that based on what you know
Mm-hmm.
is which way you go, right?
Yeah.
I think more education is needed in our space.
Oh, for sure. Like when I look back on the financial disasters I made in my youth, like I wish I could go back in time and change those. But yeah, that brings me to my next question. You mentioned you went to school abroad in Guatemala, and what did you kind of want to be when you were going to school, when you were deciding what you wanted to be when you grew up, and how did you come to be in this industry?
Uh, that is a little challenging in the sense, at first I was like, I want to be an attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to defend people, and that was always my thing, because I went abroad, and sometimes different things happen in different countries, and my mom was a little afraid of having me become an attorney in a foreign country.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, can you please pick something else? And then I was like, okay, then I'm going to go into business. I'm going to go into business administration, and I feel money is in every aspect of life.
Oh yeah.
So I did a minor in finance as well as marketing. But I did business because I felt it did accumulate all the aspects. Going to college in Guatemala was the best decision I could have ever made in my life. It was a wonderful experience, great professors, the level of ethics and professionalism that's, imposed on you at such a young age. When you think college, it's kind of like, sometimes you go to classes, sometimes you don't. But that is not the case out there. Like, people are fighting to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going and you're on time and you're sitting in the front.
Mm-hmm. I love always hearing those perspectives. Like I had a friend in my MBA program who went to school, her undergrad abroad in India. And she was talking about just like she's like, it was kind of like boarding school, like we had people watching us all the time. It was like they managed us a lot, expected a lot from us. We were supposed to, and I kind of like that perspective. Is that kind of what it was like over there? Like people were held you to a higher standard, because you just mentioned that, you couldn't just like not go to class like some people,
Oh,
who
yeah.
take school for granted here.
it was definitely identified early on my first year that the expectation or the bar is set
Mm-hmm.
quite high. And even doing presentations in class, when you were doing presentations in class, you had to come in a suit
I love
because they
that.
were like, would you present not in a suit?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about freshman year, right? Freshman year. And if you think of different colleges and different places of people going to school in like joggers and a t-shirt, that
Yeah.
was not the case there. So at first it was a big culture shock for me, right? Because I was born and raised in Chicago. But then I adapted. I really enjoy it. And maybe that's why I really enjoy wearing blazers every day because
Yeah.
I got stuck on that mentality.
You're hella stylish. That is the truth. If you haven't met Vanessa, you will find out when you do meet her. So I'm curious about that, like experience. How has that helped you in terms of you're a business owner? You've been at the C-level in a corporation. How has that kind of helped you in that trajectory of your career? That experience.
So that experience, right, had the help of the more professional side and implementing those pieces and the way people portray you, the first impressions. They teach you all that. So it's kind of like they teach you real world things.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
theory and books, but it's a lot of real world teaching. And I think that was very helpful. I was also, it's like when you're young, you want to look old, then you're old and you want to look young. I've
Yeah.
always done this kind of suit thing. So at a very young age, after my chandelier cleaning, I went into selling shoes. But right after that, at the young age of 18, I was a manager at Pepsi promoting their Mountain Dew product for a summer, like a summer job. And then I went
Cool.
to be another manager at a furniture store, an international sales manager for a lumber manufacturing that I'd have to travel like to Germany. So it was just like so young though, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine you're sending a 20-year-old to represent our whole company in Germany
Gosh,
while I
what an
lived in Guatemala?
experience. What an invaluable experience. My gosh. That is so neat. So like you were at the C-level at a corporation and then you started your own firm with your sister on the Empowered Network. So your sister, Dr. Patricia Villarreal. Talk to us about that experience of starting your business and what kind of like, the vision you guys had in mind and how it's evolved.
So it was, we both are in the business to help individuals,
Mm-hmm.
right? And bringing those two pieces together were easy
Yeah.
because of what we both enjoy. In the finance space, and there's quite a few people out there that do this, and I love that. I wish there was more, which is bring that the emotional and mental aspect to finance to make that combination of the two,
Yeah.
because that is what drives your decision making,
Oh yeah.
right? It's not just based on your dollars. It's truly based on emotions and your wellness and your environment. So having those two aspects together is really helping on the consulting side. But if I think a little like deeper into it, and this is kind of maybe an announcement, but I would say our future is to make Empowered Network a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So that way there's more people that can have access to it, right? We want to educate more, and there are a lot of people that would want it and are maybe not in the position to be able to pay, but we still want to give it to them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been in our talks as well, that when does that happen? When will we be ready to just convert that practice? She has her own practice as well, with therapy. But we'll each have our own individual businesses, continue with Empowered Network, and hopefully soon be able to create it into a nonprofit.
It's such a neat combination of skills. Like, and I told you this yesterday. I was bragging about you to an event organizer who asked, like, what would I want to see? And I told them about you and Dr. Patricia, like that element of it's such a unique combination of we have an advisor and we have a psychologist, a clinical psychologist together talking about really important things and impactful things. And it's just such a cool combination. So anyways, I love that, what y'all are doing over there. So you recently, both of you offered a webinar, talking about aligning your values with your leadership style. And I know we have been working together for months now, developing this SER Latino Advisor Summit. So talk to me about how leading that charge kind of aligns with your values as a professional, as a person, all of the things.
I think the main piece is that we care so much, right? Mm-hmm. We care so much. And when I mean we, I don't mean just my sister and I mean we as in you and I, right?
Yeah. For sure.
We care, you care too. We care so much about helping others. And when we see the lack of representation of Latinos in events, in the financial industry, we talked about it yesterday when we were talking about with Sonia from choir, and it makes sometimes my stomach hurt a little, right? And it feels like it's butterflies, but it's not the fun butterflies. It's the other ones that give me that sense of, oh my goodness, what can I do to help? I really want to help. And I think that's what brought us together, right? Our desire to want to help in any way that we can, and creating this SER Summit to have other Latinos together and have that same sense of growing together and seeing someone that looks like me and acknowledging that they have in some shape or form a success. How can I be there? How can we help? How can we be mentors to these people? And everybody tells you, get a mentor, but it's hard. Yeah. It's hard when you're not placed in that space. And I think having that space for all of us and a networking environment, right? I think it'll be very open and like community driven. I'm just so excited for it, but it definitely aligns with my personal values of always serving, helping, and supporting others.
Yeah, I love that. And the SER Summit takes place on September 26th in Phoenix. There's still time to register, but essentially what Vanessa and I and the team, there's 9 of us all together, got together and wanted to plan an event where we intentionally come together, right? Because we will see each other at, just like we did at Excel, and connect and kind of move through the event together. But to have an event that's specifically geared toward us in this small space of the whole finance industry was really important to us. So it's really exciting. There's again still time to register, but I'm curious about if you could give us a sneak peek into what you and Dr. Patricia are going to talk about at the event at the end of this month.
Yes. So again, we're going to blend the two pieces, right? So we're going to blend some financial aspects as well as blending some pieces of cultural beliefs that are formed due to how we were raised, right? So we're going to add that mental aspect to finance. And I think one of the biggest issues that we find in all cultures and all races, right? We can tie it specifically to Latinos at the event, but for all of us, there are reasons why we are where we are today. And we put a glass and we can see what that future holds for us, but we don't cross it. So what is that, what we call decision paralysis? What is keeping us from taking that next step? There's multiple pieces that we'll walk through on where you might fit, right? Do you fear that do you have lack of confidence, right? Lack of knowledge. Or sometimes it's the fear, not just of failure, the fear of success, which I know sounds odd, but that's there real. Is fear of success. Did I go too far? Did I make too much? Is this not where I'm supposed to be? Right? Yeah. So we'll talk through all of those aspects and keep it very dynamic. We'll have a tool that we'll give out to everyone, and you'll be able to walk through it and kind of identify your place by the time we're done with our speaking.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited for that. That's going to be awesome. And one thing I love about, the crew of 9 of us and the community within this financial services space is I feel like there's been this misconception that as Latinos, we're kind of crabs in a bucket, and I think that's true in some cases, like, oh, well, I'm, I grew up in a predominantly Mexican American town, and it was kind of like when you did something good, it was like, oh, you think you're better than us. Or like, it was like a whole attitude, right? This whole, but I don't find that to be true in adulthood. in the communities that I've joined as a, you know, Latino Leadership Institute, for example, and things that communities that I've joined, it's building each other up. And the people that organize the event, the 9 of us, are all those people that I've collected over my 9 years in the profession as my network, as our network, building each other up, right? And that's a beautiful thing. And that community building is a really critical part of this. So, you know, talk to me a little bit about, you know, how you've benefited from building community among other Latinos, and the power of creating that community here in the financial services space, and what that means for retention and attraction of talent in the future.
I think some people like to say, you know, you're in it for you, you do it for you, and you can do it on your own. Everything else is just a mess around you. I believe the total opposite of that. I believe that there are moments in my life where I have felt so down that having this strong community is what kept me up.
Yeah.
It's what helped me move forward. When they say, right, that it takes a village to raise a child, that is the honest truth, right? And we don't mean that you're helping me feed the child, you're helping me pick up the child, but it's those moments that the child can have with other people that they learn from. That's what makes them a better person. And I believe that, right? Some people like to say, be around like-minded individuals, and that's good. But I also like people that don't think like me.
Yeah.
How am I going to learn about what others feel, what others believe? What do they think? It's not an absolute. That's one thing I've learned as I've grown older, is not using absolutes, the nevers, the always, forever. It shouldn't be like that. There should be, today I feel like this, and today I believe this, right? But if I'm confronted with something else by my community and they can show me the potential for that being a successful route, why not? Instead of being so close-minded of, nope, this is it. I'm the end all be all, right? Because I have 25 years of experience and you have 2. Your 2 years, it's not the length of time, and I'm not diminishing those who have more years of experience than mine. I'm just saying, let's value everybody for what they bring to the table. Every piece is valuable, because it's like a puzzle. You need all those pieces to complete the puzzle. Even if you have the big, large chunk done already, right? You need all the pieces. And I think that's what a community does.
Yeah. And to the point of we were talking about earlier, that you learn more from failure. Sometimes you learn so much from people who don't think like you, who challenge the way you think. Like, and even among the 9 of us, even among the entire, you know, Latino diaspora, is what I like to call, is we're so different. We have such different cultures, such different languages, different everything, but yet we can come together and build a community and learn from each other. And then also, you know, I think that it does a lot for retention in the industry. We talk a lot about how it's hard to bring people into the industry because sometimes, you know, you feel lonely and you want to leave. And then, you know, but if you have this network, like, I can't tell you how many times my network has helped me be like, okay, well, no, let's give it a chance and do this instead and do that. And it was really helpful for me to stay this long, when, you know, if I didn't have that, I would just have gone somewhere else to a different industry, honestly. And so one thing that I want to talk about a little bit, which we didn't kind of mention before, was, you know, at FPA retreat in May, there was a speaker named Ken Gronbach, and we're going to have Ken on the show, so stay tuned for the rest of the month. He's going to join us in a few weeks. But Ken talked about, he's a demographer, right? He talks about these demographics and all of, he's a futurist, so he talks about the future. And he was really going on and on at FP retreat about, he asked how many Latinos are there in the crowd, and 2 of us raised our hand. And he's like, well, that's the future, you know, of all industries, of all sectors. And it was like, it blew my mind that here was this, you know, white guy up there on the stage talking about how Latinos are the future. And so I guess what I want to talk about is, you know, it's not going to solve the problems, but the attracting of Latino talent as clients, as talent, as employees is really critically, it's vital for the industry, in my opinion. And I want to dive a little bit about, like, dive into a little bit about the misconceptions about how, our demographics don't have money, we don't have skills, we don't have all of these things, but we do though. And I think there's a misconception out there that we wouldn't fit, or we're not good enough, or I don't know what it is, that we're underrepresented. Like even Sonia Dreisler from Choir was saying yesterday, we're underrepresented when it comes to speakers at conferences, and underrepresented in sectors, but we shouldn't be. We should be leading the charge in some way, and joining leadership teams and all of these things. And so my question is, after all of that, all of that nonsense babble, is what in what ways would firms benefit from attracting us both as talent, as employees, as stakeholders, and as clients?
I think it's more not in what ways would they benefit, but how can they attract? In what ways they can benefit? I mean, tons of ways, right?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
too many to mention on how they can benefit from our skill set. But I think it's more so how. And I've talked to many female advisors, and sometimes they're like, I'm trying to think of what firm to go to. And she's like, and one of the biggest turnoffs is I go onto the website and it's all men.
Yep.
All of them. So how is she going to feel supported there? How is she going to feel that there's someone who will advocate for her there? She won't. So she doesn't apply. Right. So I think that's what's happened to a lot of us as Latinos. There isn't many out there. So then it's kind of, do I get in? Do I not? Do I get in? Do I not? Will there be someone who will support me, who will help me along that phase? So I think it's one of two things, right? For those RIAs out there that are looking to recruit women or looking to recruit Latinos, it's putting those pieces in place. So let's say I am a practice of no diversity and no inclusion, right? All men. Well, then I want to see your plan, right? I'm an advisor and I'm attracted to maybe your models. I'm attracted to your vision. I'm attracted to your values, but I don't see everything reflected on here. As the person in HR or as the managing partner, you need to show me that you have a plan in place to change that. Because too many people are like, yeah, that's our plan. Where is it? Do you even have it written down? Do you have it on paper where you could show me after this year, we're going to implement these 3 pieces, right? So even though you don't have women on the team, that doesn't mean you can't have a policy around maternity leave, paternity. You can have these pieces in place because you're truly all in. You're not just saying it, you are doing it with a plan as soon as it happens, right? I think those are the pieces. Kind of talk the talk, walk the walk.
No, that's such a valid point. Yeah, because it is hard. Like I always hear this statement, somebody has to be the first. It's like, yeah, but if the first goes in there and then you traumatize them and they don't want anything to do, like you're not just driving people away from your firm, you're driving people away from this industry altogether. So I think we worked with a diversity and consulting firm named Shable Solutions, and they talked about cleaning up your house before you invite people over. And that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like set your policies, make a map, let people know how you're going to support, and one way to support is to support them in the quest for these communities, right? Like Quad A and FPA Latino and FPA, and paying for them to attend events like this. So we have a pretty generous continuing education policy here, so we're able to pay for conferences and things like that. So like incorporating things like that into these plans that you're talking about is really critically vital. So
I think that piece that you're saying is being ahead of it, right? You don't want if it's women or if it's Latinos coming to you as the head of the practice and saying, hey, there's these events.
Yeah.
Can I go to one of them? Would you sponsor me to go to one of them? It should be the opposite. Take that responsibility yourself as a business owner and say, hey, I looked these up for you.
Oh, that's
which
a good
would
point.
you like to go to, right? Can you imagine the motivation that you're giving that team member, right?
Yep.
You're in it. You're in it for them. You chose something specific for them. And I know that takes time. And I think that's a big piece in the, RIA space, that you're busy not running the business, but getting clients to grow the business, and forget that to grow the business, it's internal as well, right?
Yeah.
Your team needs to be that core piece that helps with all of that, but you have to keep them incentivized, as you do with your clients, right? When you call your clients and tell them happy birthday, or if you call your clients and are just involved in their life, it's the same with career development internally. So you have to do the work ahead of time.
That wow, that's so revolutionary. Like that's such a simple but revolutionary concept. You know what I mean? Like, because even when you feel supported as an employee, no matter what background you're from, like it creates that sense of loyalty, right? Like I had a boss, Carly Shulaka. She's at Schwab now, and I talk about her a lot. And I love her so much. She was one of my mentors, and kind of made this profession very warm and loving for the first 6 years I was in it. And so she advocated to pay me back for going through a fellowship program. We didn't have any sort of continuing education policy at that time. And so it was a complete surprise. Like when I'm like, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation for this program? I'm going to go through this. It was a fellowship program with the Latino Leadership Institute. And it cost about $3,000 at the time. And like, I graduated and she's like, oh, can I have a copy of your certificate? And so she cut me a check for what I paid for the program. And to me, that act, like I didn't ask her to do it. I didn't know that was even an option. And she did it for me. And it was just like, wow, she really cares about me.
Correct.
That was like, that just blew my mind. So stuff like that, I love that concept. So yeah, that's a great concept to just be proactive, support your employees. And like Ron here at Carson Group, Ron is our CEO and founder. Like he talks a lot about that, like keeping your team, putting your team first, and then they'll put the clients first type of stuff. So that's such a great concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about the SER Summit and what are some of the other elements you're really excited for?
Ooh. So I'm all about adding value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that having a feel good experience is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, having tools and resources that you take back and implement into your business, into your life, into wherever they kind of fall into place is even better.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm excited about. And said that I know that we have great speakers, great panels set up, but also there will be two tools that we deliver so that way you can go home and implement these items that were shared, right?
Yeah.
Too many times you go to these events and you're trying to take notes of what they're saying, or you're trying to collect this, but then you're trying to network and you're trying to do that. So kind of having one place that can be something that you take with you and then choose, right? You don't have to do all of them because all of them is a lot. Pick
Yeah.
one thing that truly like made an impact on you, or that you believe will trigger you to move forward. If you're in a place of stuckness and you don't know what to do, take that tool and implement that. And later you can get to the others, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest, and salsa lessons, of course. I'm
Yes.
going to enjoy those.
Of course. I'm not a great salsa dancer. I like to dance, but I'm excited for the salsa lesson too, and to get my dance on. But one of the things that was really important for us, the tools was really critically important, but addressing the whole self, right? Like you and Dr. Patricia are talking a lot about like, how to take care of that aspect of mental health. We have my husband, Jamie, who's a performance coach. He's talking about giving breathing exercises and techniques. And so there'll be like a QR code to take these exercises home with you so you don't forget them. You don't have to record on your phone. You don't have to, we're taking that onus off of the participant to have to be constantly taking notes, or we're giving everything to them. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. And to kind of shift away and give some actionable takeaways for our listeners, because that's a big thing for us on Framework, is in terms of, we talk a lot about passion prospecting and planning events to attract new clients. What are some of your tips? And you plan a lot of events. You are really, really good at it. Like you just, took it and ran with it and made it all happen. It was very magical to watch. What are some of your tips for our advisors listening to plan their own events? And it doesn't have to be as big as a whole day long conference, but like different passion prospecting events.
I think the planning of your location, the food, the decoration, all of that piece is a side piece. You have to be purposeful, right?
Mhm.
So deciding what is the purpose. Is it just to gather clients, or is your goal today just to meet people, right? You have to kind of set that, because then you feel an event could be a failure when it's not. So setting that purpose to start is very important, because believe me, I've had those where I'm like, oh, this is what I want. And sometimes I would tie it to just to a number. I want 30 people to come to the event.
Mhm.
And then when 25 get there, I'm like, that was close, but I didn't make it, right?
So you're a perfectionist.
And you
You're
know
only
already.
5 short.
I was like, but those are the pieces that truly understand what is your intention for this,
Mhm.
add your purpose, your why, and then the getting people in the seats is always an important piece. Sometimes we need to plan way in advance, and we know that there's many last minute registers.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we incentivize people, please register. But that's okay, right? And if we really think about it, even if it's 2 to 3 people that come to an event, if those 3 people end up being your client versus having a room of 40 and no one becomes your client, if you look at it from the outside perspective, you're like, ooh, that 40 people event, I'm sure that was phenomenal. And then you're like, nope, didn't get any clients. But then you had that other one. So I would say if you're an advisor thinking of implementing that, write things down. I am a true believer that if you write it down, it helps you see things differently. In your mind, you go through sentences, you go through thoughts, and it's different than having it on paper. So I'm a proponent of write it down. So once you do, then decide if maybe your first event is very small. Maybe it doesn't need to be called an event. Let's just get together with 2 of your clients and each of them bring 1 to 2 people. And you sit down and talk about an idea that maybe one of them wants to bring to the table, or a big question that can get complicated. And if it's a larger group, it makes it difficult to get thorough, or it makes it harder for people to be vulnerable and truly share.
Yeah, that's
So
true
maybe
too.
I have more questions, but I don't want to say them out loud in this big room with more people. But if it's just 3 or 4 of us, I feel safe. I feel safe in this environment, and I want to share my true questions, and I'd love your advice.
Mm-hmm. That's great. A great tip, like setting the intention so that way you know what success looks like. That's very succinct, and I like that's a good takeaway for you listening out there. So Vanessa, I want to be mindful of time. I know you're very busy, and I really appreciate you taking time to join me here on Framework today. And we always close out with a question that kind of ties into what we do here at Carson. And that question is, what does finding your freedom mean to you?
That's a really deep question.
Yeah, we like to go deep.
I think space gives me freedom, right? Having a space where I can be myself. And one of the pieces that I love is sharing with others. So kind of not just be myself, but have those tools and resources that allow me to create this path for my family, for my network, because that will give me freedom. Because my freedom to me isn't just mine, right? My freedom comes with yours, comes with Jamie's, comes with, right? I love to have that sense of freedom, means more people have it. And if I can help create that, that gives me a sense of freedom.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a beautiful way to end. But thank you again so much. I appreciate you spending time with me. And I could talk to you forever, but we have to be mindful of everybody else's time too.
We have.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Vanessa. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into this week's episode of Framework. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.